She looked down at the stain, realizing what had happened. Her heart sank and tears welled up in her eyes. Look at her! Not only is she ugly, but she's dirty too, Ada shouted. She can't even take care of herself as a woman. When she stepped into the school hallway, it was as if time stood still. Students and teachers alike turned to look at her, their eyes widening in surprise. It was as if they were seeing her for the first time. What really happened to Uju overnight? It was Uju's first senior year at St. Bridget's High School. Her looks had never been an issue until now, when she was often being mocked and ridiculed for her appearance. Her classmates and even her teachers at St. Bridget's would make hurtful comments which made her feel isolated and unloved. Every day, Uju would walk home from school with a heavy heart, wishing she could be beautiful like the other girls. Uju often wondered why she looked so different from her sisters, Oma and Asa, who were both very beautiful. One evening, after a particularly tough day at school, she gathered the courage to ask her parents, "Why am I the ugliest child? Why don't I look like Oma and Asa?" Her parents were taken aback by her question. Her mother gently took her hand and said, "Uju, you are not ugly. You are unique and special in your own way. Beauty is not about how you look on the outside. It's about who you are inside. You have a kind heart, and that makes you very beautiful to us." Her father added, "We love you just as much as we love Oma and Asa. Each of you is different, and that is what makes our family special. Never doubt our love for you, Uju." Her sisters Oma and Asa were aware of the teasing Uju faced at school, and while they loved her, they sometimes struggled to understand her pain. Oma, the eldest, was more empathic and often tried to comfort Uju, reminding her of her strength and talents. Asa, on the other hand, was more carefree and sometimes unintentionally said things that hurt Uju's feelings, though she never meant to be cruel. Despite these occasional misunderstandings, Oma and Asa did care for Uju. They would stand up for her when they saw others being mean and try to include her in their activities. However, the societal pressure and the constant comparisons sometimes created a distance between them. Uju had some unique features that were often considered unattractive. She had a broad flat nose. Her face was marred by acne. She had uneven skin tone. Her hair was very thin and sparse, and her teeth were crooked. These physical traits made her stand out in a way that her peers and even some adults found easy to mock. One day, during a math lesson, Uju was called to the board to solve a problem. As she stood up, a classmate whispered loudly, "Watch out, the ugly duckling is about to quack." The entire class burst into laughter, including the teacher who did nothing to stop it. Uju felt humiliated and her confidence shattered. She struggled to focus on the problem and made several mistakes. She returned to her seat with her head down, fighting back tears. From that day on, she dreaded being called to the board and avoided participating in class. Chidi was a quiet and thoughtful boy, unlike other classmates, never joined in mocking Uju. After math class that day, he approached her and said, "It is very wrong to judge people based on how they look. Don't let them get to you." From that day on, Chidi made it a point to befriend Uju. He would sit with her during lunch and they would talk about their favorite subjects. This genuine kindness and friendship gave her a much-needed sense of belonging and acceptance. Uju was invited to her classmate Lara's birthday party. When she arrived, the birthday girl whispered to her friends, "I only invited her because my mom made me. Just ignore her." Throughout the party, Uju was left out of games and conversations. Even when she tried to join the conversations and games, someone would make a snide comment and everyone would giggle. She felt invincible and thought she didn't belong, so she left the party early and cried herself to sleep that night. The next day at a parent-teacher meeting, Uju's teacher said, "She's a bright student, but she needs to work on her appearance. It might help her make friends." Uju's parents were deeply hurt and angered by the teacher's insensitive comment. They had always tried to support and encourage Uju, knowing how much she struggled with the way others treated her. Hearing such a remark from someone in a position of authority and trust was a painful blow. Uju's mother, who was usually calm and composed, couldn't hold back her frustration. She replied firmly, "With all due respect, Mrs. Ade, my daughter's worth is not determined by her appearance. She's a bright, kind, and talented girl, and it is your job as a teacher to nurture those qualities, not to diminish her self-esteem with such hurtful comments." Uju's father also added, "We expect you to treat all students with respect and to foster an environment where they all feel safe and valued." After the meeting with the class teacher, Uju's parents went to see the principal regarding the teacher's comment. The principal listened attentively and expressed regret for the incident. He assured Uju's parents that he would speak with the teacher and take appropriate measures to prevent such occurrences in the future. The principal had a meeting with Mrs. Ade, the teacher. He emphasized the importance of maintaining a respectful and supportive environment for all students and made it clear that any further incidents of insensitivity or inappropriate comments would result in more severe consequences. The mean girls were Uju's classmates. They were a group of three popular students, Ada, Bisi, and Chika. They were known for their beauty, their confidence, and influence over their peers. They often used their popularity to intimidate and control others, and they particularly enjoyed targeting Uju because she was so vulnerable. During the midterm test, Ada, the leader of the group who sits right behind Uju, asked her to share her answers. Uju, who valued honesty and hard work, refused. This refusal infuriated Ada and her friends, who were used to getting their way. Determined to make Uju pay for her defiance, the mean girls intensified their bullying. One day, during biology class, the teacher called on Uju to answer a question. While Uju was standing and focused on answering, Ada saw an opportunity to humiliate her. She quickly emptied the ink from her red pen onto Uju's seat, making sure it spread across the chair. Unaware of Ada's malicious act, Uju sat down after successfully answering the question, and the ink soaked into her uniform. The lesson continued and Uju remained oblivious to the stain. Meanwhile, Ada and her friends kept giggling. When the bell rang, signaling the end of the class, Uju stood up to submit her notebook. As she walked to the teacher's desk, the entire class erupted in laughter. Ada, Bisi, and Chika led the jeering, pointing at the large red stain on Uju's skirt. "Look at her! Not only is she ugly, but she's dirty too," Ada shouted. "She can't even take care of herself as a woman." The cruel comments and laughter echoed through the classroom, and Uju felt her face burn with shame. She looked down at the stain, realizing what had happened. Her heart sank and tears welled up in her eyes. She felt utterly humiliated and powerless. She quickly handed her notebook to the teacher and rushed out of the classroom, trying to escape the mocking voices. She ran to the bathroom, where she locked herself in a stall and cried. The biology teacher, Mr. Effiong, was initially unaware of what had transpired. He was busy collecting notebooks when the laughter erupted. Confused, he looked up to see the students pointing and jeering at Uju. When he noticed the red stain on her skirt and realized the source of the commotion, his expression turned stern. "Enough!" Mr. Okoro's voice cut through the laughter, silencing the class. "This behavior is unacceptable. Can someone please go to the restroom and help her out?" None of the girls made a move except Chidi, who brought out his cardigan. "Bisi, take the cardigan to Uju," Mr. Effiong ordered. "The rest of you, I expect better behavior. This kind of bullying will not be tolerated in my classroom." When Uju returned to class, Ada looked at her with satisfaction on her face. "I told you I would make you regret the day you said no to me. Watch your back, Uju." "Leave her alone," yelled Chidi. Turning to her clique, Ada said, "Did anyone speak? Did I hear another quack?" "Probably," echoed her friends as they burst out in laughter and walked away. Chidi went up to Uju and said, "I am so sorry you had to go through that." "Thanks, Chidi, and thanks for lending me your cardigan. I'll return it tomorrow clean. Although Chidi was able to lighten Uju's mood, she still felt bad after what happened at school that day. As she walked home, she wondered why most of her classmates couldn't be nice to her. It wasn't her fault that she wasn't pretty. The more she thought about it, the more tears ran down her cheeks. She sat down under a large tree and wept. Her sobs echoed through the quiet street, attracting the attention of an elderly woman who was passing by. This woman was strikingly beautiful. "My child, why are you crying so sorrowfully?" Uju looked up, her eyes red and swollen from crying, and was taken aback by the woman's beauty. "If only I looked half as beautiful as you are, my life would be so much easier. I would have a lot of friends and I wouldn't be this sad." The elderly woman smiled kindly and sat down beside Uju. "Appearances can be deceiving, my dear. What truly matters is the beauty of your heart. But I see you are in great pain, so I will give you a choice. If you can choose between being beautiful on the outside or to have a beautiful heart, which would you prefer?" Without hesitation, Uju chose to be beautiful on the outside. The woman nodded and handed her a succulent almond fruit. "Eat this, and your wish will be granted." Uju took a bite of the fruit, and the woman told her to go home and rest. That night, Uju went to bed with a mix of anxiety and apprehension. When she woke up the next morning, she felt different, but wasn't sure how. She hurried to get ready for school, eager to see if the woman's promise had come through. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through Uju's room, she stood in front of her mirror and looked at herself. Nothing had changed. She still looked the same. Feeling downcast, she got ready and left for school. When she stepped into the school hallway, it was as if time stood still. Students and teachers alike turned to look at her, their eyes widening in surprise. It was as if they were seeing her for the first time. What really happened to Uju overnight? You see, to her family, she looked the same, but to herself and everyone in her school environment, she had blossomed into a beauty. Her hair had become thicker, fuller and longer. Her skin had become clearer, glowing and beautiful. Her nose had become thinner and longer, and her hips had become fuller. She exuded a certain kind of confidence that affected everyone. Uju's heart raced, but she kept her head high and greeted the teachers with a warm smile. They returned her greeting with genuine smiles, something she hadn't experienced before. As she made her way to the classroom, the whispers started. "Is that Uju? She looks amazing. Wow, she's so beautiful." The students who had once ignored and teased her now couldn't stop saying hi. Even the mean girls who had made her life difficult seemed eager to interact with her. In class, Uju found herself surrounded by new friends. Everyone wanted to talk to her, to get to know her. She felt a sense of belonging she had never felt before. The mean girls Ada, Bisi and Chika quickly recruited her into their group, eager to have the most beautiful girl in school as part of their clique. At first, Uju was thrilled by the sudden change in her social status. She enjoyed the attention and the feeling of belonging. However, as she spent more time with the mean girls, her personality began to change. She started adopting their behaviors and attitudes, becoming rude, disrespectful, and mean. She began to look down on the few who were once nice to her, including Chidi. She ignored his attempts to talk to her and even joined in when the mean girls made fun of others. Chidi, who had always been kind and supportive, was hurt and confused by Uju's sudden transformation. He couldn't understand why she was treating him and the others so poorly. One day, during lunch, Chidi approached Uju, hoping to remind her of their friendship. "Uju, can we talk?" Uju, surrounded by Ada and her friends, scoffed. "Why would I want to talk to you, Chidi? Can't you see I'm busy?" She said dismissively, causing the mean girls to laugh. Chidi's heart sank. He realized that the Uju he cared about was lost beneath the surface of her new persona. He walked away feeling a deep sense of loss and disappointment. Even at home, Alma and Asa were soon disheartened by her rude and disrespectful behavior. Uju's constant belittling and dismissive attitude created a rift between them. The once close-knit bond they shared began to fray, and the sisters felt hurt and confused by her drastic change. Their parents were deeply concerned about her behavior. They had always taught their children the importance of kindness and respect, and seeing Uju act so differently was distressing. Her disrespectful attitude toward them and her siblings caused tension in the household. They tried to talk to her, hoping to understand and help her, but Uju often responded with anger and defiance. This strained their relationship, leaving her parents feeling helpless. Emeka, the most sought after boy at St. Bridget's High School, was in his final year of senior secondary. Handsome, charming, wealthy, and arrogant, he was the dream crush of many girls, including Ada, who had always imagined herself as Emeka's girlfriend, believing they were a perfect match. So when Emeka asked Uju to be his girlfriend and she agreed, Ada was furious. She confronted Uju one day at lunch. "Hey, tell your girlfriend to stay away from Emeka. He is mine." Chidu looked up at her. "Uju is not my girlfriend. We're not even friends anymore, so why don't you go tell her yourself?" One afternoon, Ada cornered Uju in the hallway, her eyes blazing with anger. "You have two choices, Uju," she hissed. "Either you break up with Emeka or you leave our group. You don't belong to us if you're going to steal what should be mine. I'm not going to break up with Emeka just because you want me to. If leaving your group means I can be with someone who cares about me, then so be it." Ada's face twisted with rage. "You regret this, Uju. Mark my words," she said and stormed off. At the end of school that day, Chidi found Uju and Emeka at the school garden, chatting and laughing. "Can I have a word with you, Uju?" Chidi said. "Sorry, Chidi, I'm busy," replied Uju. "Whatever you have to say to my girlfriend, it can be said here because she's not moving an inch," Emeka replied arrogantly. Chidi nodded in defeat, then said to Uju, "I hope you are happy with your new status, Uju. You used to feel very bad about the way Ada and her friends treated you. Now you're doing the same thing to those of us who really care about you." Then he walked away. For a moment, Uju felt remorse, then turned and smiled at Emeka. 1 week after Uju distanced herself from Ada and her clique, an incident occurred. During a math lesson, Mr. Okoro, the math teacher, realized he had forgotten his textbook in the staff room. He asked Uju to fetch it for him. Uju left the classroom and headed to the staff room. About 2 minutes later, Ada raised her hand and asked to be excused to use the restroom. Mr. Okoro, unaware of her ulterior motives, granted her permission. She made her way toward the staff room, but hid by the corner as she watched Uju. Later that day, when Mr. Okoro returned to the staff room, he discovered his cell phone was missing. He immediately reported the theft to the school administration and an investigation was launched. The timing of the incident and the fact that Uju had been in the staff room raised suspicions. After Mr. Okoro reported his missing phone, the principal called an impromptu assembly. She addressed the entire school, urging the person who took the phone to return it to her office within the next hour, no questions asked. The atmosphere was tense and students returned to their classroom, whispering and speculating about who might have taken the phone. Back in the classroom, Ada seized the opportunity to further tarnish Uju's reputation. She began making snide comments, loudly insinuating that Uju must have taken the phone, since she was the last person at Mr. Okoro's desk. "It's obvious who the thief is," Ada said, her voice dripping with malice. "Uju was right there. Who else could it be?" Uju, already feeling the weight of the false accusation, tried to defend herself. "I did not take the phone, Ada, and you know it." The tension escalated as the students watched the confrontation unfold. Ada, determined to prove her point, suddenly walked over to Uju's locker and began rifling through her things without warning. Uju tried to stop her, pleading, "Ada, stop! You have no right to go through my stuff." Ignoring Uju's protest, Ada continued her search. Then, with a triumphant shout, she pulled out Mr. Okoro's phone from Uju's locker. I knew it! You stole Mr. Okoro's phone, she exclaimed, holding the phone aloft for everyone to see. The classroom erupted into chaos. Students began shouting and jeering, some accusing Uju while others looked on in shock. The commotion quickly spread throughout the school, and soon everyone was talking about how Uju had supposedly stolen the phone. Uju stood there, stunned and heartbroken. She knew she was innocent, but the evidence seemed to be against her. Tears welled up in her eyes as she realized how deeply Ada had set her up. The betrayal and the renewed bullying felt overwhelming. However, the school administration, aware of the seriousness of the accusation, decided to investigate further. The rest of the day was hell for Uju. Anywhere she went, the students pointed and jeered at her, calling her a thief. During recess, Uju anxiously waited for Emeka to come to their usual spot, but he didn't. So she walked towards his class, hoping to find him. Emeka and his group of friends were there, talking. The moment they sighted Uju, they burst out into laughter. Uju was embarrassed. I need to speak to you, Emeka, she said. I don't want to be seen with a thief. I no longer want to have anything to do with you, Uju. Understand? And stay away from me, he said and walked away, not even giving her any chance to defend herself. Uju stood there, hot tears stinging her eyes. She knew the feeling all too well. That feeling of being rejected and mocked once more came flooding through her. How can Emeka conclude she was guilty? No benefit of the doubt? She turned and walked away. As she approached her classroom, she saw Chidi sitting by the corner watching her. She couldn't make out the expression on his face. Was he condemning her too, or did he believe she didn't steal the phone? She didn't want to find out what he was thinking, so she walked into her class, her face down in shame. The principal summoned Mr. and Mrs. Ude to the school to discuss the serious accusation against their daughter, Uju. They arrived, visibly concerned and anxious. As they sat down in the principal's office, the principal explained the situation and the evidence that seemed to point to Uju. Mr. Aude spoke first, his voice firm but calm. Our daughter is not a thief. There's no way she could have stolen that phone. Uju has always been honest and hardworking. Mrs. Ude nodded in agreement, her eyes filled with worry. We know our daughter. She would never do something like this. Despite their heartfelt defense, the principal felt bound by the apparent evidence. I understand your position, Mr. and Mrs. Ude, but the evidence is quite compelling. We found the phone in Uju's locker, and the teacher testified he had sent her to the staff room earlier. Given the circumstances, we have no choice but to expel her. The words hit Uju like a ton of bricks. She felt her world crumbling around her. As she walked back to the classroom to clear her desk, her classmates began to jeer and mock her. Thief! Thief! They shouted, their voices filled with malice. Uju stood there, tears running down her cheeks as she clutched her belongings. I am not a thief. I didn't steal Mr. Okoro's phone. I am not a thief. I did not steal his phone. She cried out repeatedly, her voice breaking with each word. The humiliation and despair was overwhelming. Suddenly, she felt a gentle shake on her shoulder. Uju, Uju, wake up! Her mother's voice called softly. Uju's eyes fluttered open and she found herself in her own bedroom, her mother's concerned face hovering above her. It was a dream, her mother said soothingly, brushing a tear from her cheek. You're safe, Uju, and everything is okay. Uju sat up, her heart still pounding from the vivid nightmare. She hugged her mother tightly, relieved that the terrible events had not been real. The dream had felt so real, but now she was back in the comfort of her home, surrounded by the love and support of her family. I don't want to be beautiful anymore, Mama, Uju cried, her voice trembling. People will still be mean to you, whether you are beautiful or not. And those who truly love you will stick by you. Her mother held her close, stroking her hair gently. That's right, my dear. True love and friendship come from the heart, not from how you look. You are beautiful just the way you are, inside and out. And don't ever forget that, Uju. She looked up at her mother, feeling a deep sense of comfort and understanding. She realized that her worth was not defined by her appearance, but by the love and kindness she shared with others. Hugging her mother dearly, Uju felt a renewed sense of strength and determination to embrace her true self and the genuine friendships she has made. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section what you learned from this story. Share the video with any other person you think will enjoy it too. Give us a big like, it helps our channel to grow. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.